partners on the call. Ahead Partnership has been helping employers create social change for over 15 years. We're headquartered in Leeds, but we do work right across the UK. We cover a variety of different social and purpose areas. A lot of our work is focused around employability and making sure that no matter what area you come from, you have the opportunity to prosper. Enterprise, environment, but really within the last 5 years, our work has really focused within education. And whenever I say education, what does that actually mean? It's right through. So we work from primary, secondary, college. I know we have a couple of our college contacts on the call today. University level, schools rated outstanding by Ofsted, schools and special measures by Ofsted, schools with specialist educational needs for students, pupil referral units, every type of school. So I know it's quite a broad brush term, but when we say education, we're talking about all of our different partners from all different areas. So a large focus for the employers that we've worked with over the last few years has been within education, as I've said. And that's really what we're going to try and focus on today. Tech innovation for social inclusion. So why do Ahead Partnership have a place within this? A little bit about the young people that we've worked with today. Over 60% of the schools that we worked with in the last year had a higher than national average free school meal rate. So students on free school meal, it's a really good way to measure the type of background that they're coming from. So 60% of the schools that we worked with last year had a high national average on that. A lot of the schools that we work with have students who have English as an additional language. So that's for a variety of reasons. A lot of the schools that we work with up in Yorkshire, we have young people who are new to the country in the last 2 years. We have quite a few refugees. We actually have one school in Yorkshire that has over 100 different languages spoken, which is just incredible within itself. Our partners work with us because they trust us. They trust us to understand the communities that they're in and to direct their want to support the areas of most need. A lot of partners say to us, we want to help, but how do we know that the school or the community or the youth centre that we're working with is the one that needs our help the most? That's in our DNA, that's our USP. Our activities are carefully planned in partnership with our clients to make sure that they're not only meaningful for the young people that we work with, but also the business volunteers too. It's lots of fun and we make sure that it's an enjoyable experience. Great, so if we just go to slide 2, Lola. In terms of technology and digital, over the last 6 years at Ahead Partnership, we've really been developing our in-house knowledge of the technology sector. And in our operating areas, we really are part of the tech community. Again, it's great to see so many of our community friends on the call today. We see ourselves as an organisation that's able to help direct that tech need into areas of most need. I personally sit on the digital tech steering group for the Chief Economic Officer at the Council, and it's great to see we have the city's digital ambassador on the call today too. We deliver hundreds of events, and a lot of them are focused on digital, but we just thought we'd bring to life some of our experience delivering events focused on technology skills. NHS Digital, one of our clients, a year or so ago, we developed a challenge to showcase the range of roles and skills required within a company like NHS Digital. And instead of doing something real life, we decided to do a zombie outbreak in Leeds. So a real life challenge that young people can understand the different types of roles and responsibilities required within a company like that, but nothing too personal. We've developed a lot of sort of work experience, sort of work inspiration events. We do a lot of focus on diversity within the sector, both from gender balance, social mobility, BAME. One of our sort of key events of the year that we always deliver is our Girl Tech event, where we focus on getting girls just before the decisions around GCSEs and to come along and to be inspired by some of our most fabulous female volunteers. And we do that twice a year in all of our locations. All those tech tracks, getting young people to go around lots of different digital technology businesses, understanding what that actually means over the course of a day, over the course of a week. So actually, as a young person, if you had an aspiration to work within technology and digital, what does that actually mean? And giving them real life projects, examples of work that they can take part in, that brings the world of work to life. In terms of schools, so the big elephant in the room is COVID and what schools are saying at the moment. Over the last 6 months, we've spent a lot of time working with our schools, our education partners, and really understanding their ability to continue working with us as an organisation, and actually the pressures that they're under and where our type of support comes within the priority list. So a little bit of intel for you really, which we think you'll find useful. As you know, schools are operating in bubbles, but what on earth does a bubble mean? For some schools, this can mean a class, so 15 to 30 students. In other schools, this can mean a whole year group. And actually, for some of our schools, they have 300 plus students in a year group. So if a bubble has to go home and self-isolate, that could mean upwards of 300 students doing that. All of our schools, unfortunately, have reported back that they have students not attending, with one school actually missing 300 students on their first day back. Our schools have reported the extra barrier around the additional challenge of teachers who are off due to requiring tests or their family members. Obviously, the availability of tests sometimes has meant that they're off for a number of days. So this is a real challenge. I'm really sad to report, but it is an honest reflection that a lot of students locally did not make any progress at all during lockdown. So they have now 6 months of learning to make up. This is due to a number of complex reasons, but a real trend that has been fed back to us does include access to internet and technology. All of these things mean that schools are especially keen to protect core curriculum time, which does present challenges to all involved in terms of delivery. We've been working with them, we're being creative, we're being flexible. Sessions are shorter, sessions are after school, sessions over lunch, sessions are in sort of citizenship time, just making sure that we can continue to have an impact. I suppose a really reassuring thing for us at Ahead Partnership and for all of our partners is that schools are saying to us now more than ever is this type of intervention needed, and they recognise that it does need to be a priority. With this in mind, we have decided to move all of our activities to a virtual footing for the next 6 months. Although there have been and do continue to be challenges, the overall response from all of our teachers and all of our students is that they're really pleased to be back at school. They're actually relieved to be back. So, you know, from our experiences working with the students to date, it's been a really positive, thankful atmosphere, which is really good to see. You just want to switch on, Lola? So there has been a tremendous amount of news about how the pandemic has affected young people, and actually sometimes it's very hard to read through the mixed messages and to really understand how the pandemic has affected children the most. I'm going to hand across to Lola to take you through some of our and our partners' research to really spell out where the need is.
Thanks, Megan. So, like Megan said, we know that there's a lot in the media and the press at the moment around not just what happened with the exam results and how that was kind of got through, but also around the new recession and what that means for our young people who will be hitting the jobs market in the 2020s. But there are some surprising differences and changes that have been brought about for young people by the pandemic. And so we thought we'd do an interactive style quiz, as it were, get you guys involved to kind of highlight some of that, because, you know, we're at ground level working with young people in this region, but honestly, some of it surprised us as well. There are, you know, there are things coming out. Hope Not Hate have got they're a charity who have a fantastic annual report, and they very quickly added to that some research directly with young people aged 16 to 24 around, you know, their feelings because of the pandemic and the lockdown. So, you know, that they've published that about 55% of young people in that age group are feeling like their options have been limited by the pandemic. And the Education Endowment Foundation, which is a charity that looks at attainment for the poorest students in English schools, they've come out and said that potentially the impact of lockdown and schools being closed means that about 10 years of social mobility work could be wiped out, in their words. But like I say, we are going to look at some other maybe more positive and surprising aspects of the pandemic and what that means for young people career-wise. So we tested this out with our team this morning, and some of them found it easier to actually take part in this on their mobile phones. So if you do have a mobile phone and you want to take part in this very quick interactive quiz, we'll do it for 10 minutes, no more, then do go to slido.com. Otherwise, if you're on a tablet or a machine and you want to just open a browser, if you go to slido.com, you don't need to sign in. On the left-hand side, I think, it asks for a code to take part in the poll, and that's 24787. I'm just very quickly going to switch over to that live poll now. It should be just about ready to go. If you have any difficulties, let us know in the chat. You don't have to take part. We're just interested to see. We've got some interesting responses from the team this morning. So the code is 24787, and I can see I've got some names on there. Names on there already, fantastic. Well, I'll just give you 10 more seconds to log in. So we've got 5 questions, and we discovered that it does have a leaderboard. So answer with the answer that you think. It's multiple choice. Answer with the answer that you think. And if we have people who have the same number of correct answers, then I think it's fastest finger first, isn't it, Megan? I think it then works out who the winner is, depending on how quickly you gave your answer. So let's see what we think. Okay, so our first question: what percentage of young people said what they want to do as a career has changed since the pandemic? So what percentage of young people said that what they want to do as a career has changed since the pandemic? I think I've got everyone. I think so. Correct. So these were your answers. Most people thought 22%. Some thought 13%. So the answer is 22%. So those are changes brought on directly by lockdown. So the things that young people have been seeing and hearing while schools have been closed has actually changed their mind about what career they might want to pursue. Oh, it's showing the leaderboard in between. We'll wait for that one. Okay, question 2. What percentage of young people said they're now more likely to pursue a career in technology since the pandemic? We do have information on other sectors as well, but we've chosen technology as this is Leeds Digital Festival. And after this, we will send round in an email. We will share all the resources with you at the end of this seminar. Okay, I think I've got everyone. This is what you said. So we reckon 40% is 20%. So there's still a marked increase in young people that do want to pursue a career in technology. But there is actually still gender bias. So of those young people who were surveyed during lockdown, I think it was 35% were girls and the rest were boys. So there is still this gender bias that we're finding. Look at our leaderboard. Tim, 2 for 2, very good. Okay, question 3. What percentage of young people have taken part in any type of careers activity during lockdown? So this was specifically that time when schools were closed. What percentage of young people said that they took part in any type of careers activity during lockdown? This is good. You guys are a lot faster than our team were this morning. Brilliant. I've got everyone. Okay, so most of you think 35%. So everybody thinks the lowest, pretty much. It's actually 55%. So that's quite surprising, we thought. You know, we did speak with our school and college partners about how they were reaching young people and how they were making sure young people could access the curriculum during lockdown. But 55% of young people were still doing some form of careers activity. When you look a little bit deeper into that data, into that study, it does actually tell you that most of that was young people doing their own research online or talking to their parents about careers information and the kind of careers and jobs that they might want to do. If you take those careers activity types away, the number of young people who had been doing careers activity directly with employers was only about 15%, which to some people, again, still might be quite surprising. But there are employers and there were employers who were still doing activity during lockdown and reaching those young people. And I think that also speaks about the young people themselves, you know, while they're at home during lockdown, going out there and looking for the information themselves too. Tim, still at the top? Okay, so question 4. What percentage of young people said that social responsibility and ethics were important factors when choosing a job? So these young people, again, were surveyed during the lockdown period of March to July. What percentage of young people said that social responsibility and ethics were important factors when choosing a job? What do we think? Excellent, good, absolutely correct. So again, I think, you know, that speaks about our young people and what they value and what they're really looking for in a future employer, which is really positive. Still winning, Tim's still winning, excellent. Okay, our last question. What percentage of 16 to 24-year-olds are optimistic about the future? What percentage of 16 to 24-year-olds are optimistic about the future? And this survey was carried out with a whole range of age groups. This was the youngest age group. So we can compare that with other age groups. I think I've got everyone there. So we think 59%. That's absolutely correct. So only the age group aged 65 plus were slightly, and I think again it was only about 60%, you know, that only they were more optimistic about the future, shall we say. So that shows us that this age group and these young people, they're still feeling very positive about what's to come. So that's really lovely. Look, who's our winner? Oh,
well done, Jane and Caroline.
I've got Jane. Yeah, I've got Jane and Caroline closely behind. Brilliant. Well done. Oh, there we go. Right, I'm going to exit that before I break it. There we go. Brill. So I'll just get the slides back up. I'm going to apologise. You're going to see the slides quite small, unfortunately, because working from home, I'm only on a single screen. So I do apologise, but I'm going to move on now just to tell you about our pilot and the findings of that pilot. You know, the obvious answer when this happened is do what everybody else has done and move it online. But for us, there was a question about whether it really was that simple, and were we going to be able to continue to engage young people in the fantastic work that our, you know, business partners and volunteers do with us? Was that going to work? We obviously had the challenge that those young people were at home as well. So yeah, a number of difficulties to kind of overcome, a number of challenges. You may have read our independent evaluation, which we did in 2017, which was really a look at how effective our programs are and, you know, do they work essentially? And the answer was yes. 92% of young people involved in that independent evaluation said that taking part in our activities made them feel more confident about the future. But all of those activities in that evaluation were face-to-face activities, whether it was mentoring, you know, the events like Megan described, like the Girl Tech, big events, in-school events. Every single one of those, as part of our independent evaluation, students had taken part in face-to-face activity. So, you know, after 15 years experience, we know that that face-to-face, person-to-person engagement is the most powerful tool we've got, but we had to test out the virtual work before we could say definitively that it was going to work. So we took this 3-stage approach, really. Our first step was to speak to our schools and teachers and our employer network to see what they thought and see what their appetite was. An overwhelming number of our schools wanted to trial the virtual activities, despite all the new restrictions and challenges they were facing. And, you know, it seemed at one point things were changing on a sort of week-by-week basis, didn't it? So, you know, despite all of those challenges, our schools were emphatically like, yes, this is really important, and we want to help you test these out and make sure that they're working ready for September, for when the student, you know, most of the students will be back in school. We had several employers come forward in support. So KPMG, Capstick and NatWest were really instrumental, but we had volunteers from, you know, SMEs, entrepreneurs, you know, right from across our network take part. So they also had an appetite to help, to get stuck in and to help us shape and improve our virtual activities. So I should say here that we did actually do our pilot in Yorkshire and the West Midlands, also just to find out if there were any regional variations or challenges to tackle. And I think as you know, the local lockdown schemes have come in, we kind of seen the benefit of making sure that we did that regional approach. So the next stage was the tech test. You know, we tested a whole range of methods to deliver our virtual activity, and we picked what we knew, the activities that we delivered most, shall we say, to start with, to make sure that the tech was absolutely robust. Access to technology does vary, as you might expect, from school to school, college to college, and we had to be sure that whatever we were going to pick met our really robust safeguarding and privacy standards as well. We received some amazing help from the tech community, from employers in the tech community, to help us find and test and bring the right technology to deliver the activity to students and teachers. And actually, we were very quickly able to narrow down what worked and what didn't in terms of making the activity interactive and engaging, as well as something that schools could just log into easily, something that, you know, wasn't too cumbersome for teachers to be able to do. And we will come on specifically to the tech in our learnings in a second. And then the last bit of the 3-stage process was feedback. So the pilot was a really steep learning curve, and we definitely had things that went wrong and things that we hadn't predicted. So our, you know, I have to say our students, teachers and business volunteers were all exceptionally patient in taking part. They gave us their honest feedback, which was brilliant, because that's the way that we learn and improve and fix things. So, you know, the key to our organisation is partnerships, like Megan said. It's in our name, it's in our title, and that's what we're in the business of doing. And, you know, these partnerships really made sure that our virtual programmes are as inspiring and fulfilling for the employer organisations involved and their volunteers, not just the young people involved, and that was going to work in the virtual space just as well as it does in the face-to-face space. Before I move on to the next slide, did anybody have any questions? Have we had anything come up in chat or?
No questions, just a confirmation that we're going to share the research with everyone. Anything that's named through the session we'll be sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything we've got that research from, we'll share those with you. And they do make for some, you know, really interesting reading. Okay, so we've done the pilot. So this is what we learned. We did it so you don't have to, kind of thing. And these were the 5 kind of key learnings that we took away. And please do raise your hand, pop your questions in the chat. Megan is under instruction to interrupt me at any point, okay? Because, you know, we really want to answer your questions about the pilot and about what we've been doing over the last 6 months. Okay, so tech, like we said, we very, very quickly found out that 2 platforms were the best, most accessible platforms for delivering our interactive activities. So Teams, which we're using now, and we did have a brief conversation just while we were waiting for people to come in, saying that, you know, some people have been using Zoom and other platforms. Some people haven't used Teams before. It was the same for our schools and colleges as well, and for some of our volunteers taking part in the pilot. But we did find that Teams and Google Classrooms have enough features and flexibility to allow for one-to-one student interaction, such as an interview practice, but also have the ability to have multi-volunteer and audience participation, such as careers panels. So these are also the most compatible with most school systems as well. You know, there isn't a lengthy sign-in process for teachers. You know, as long as they've got the link, like I sent the link to you guys for this seminar, you know, we send them the link, they can pretty much type their name in, log on, get the students settled, and it just reduces, you know, the time and the effort and the energy for the teachers in being able to make sure that it happens. So activities, so the most effective and popular activities, again, very soon came to the fore. Students really value still being able to ask their own questions and to kind of create their own questions and, you know, have their own conversations and getting that direct contact with employers. So the fact that these activities weren't in person actually didn't seem to faze them, and we were quite surprised by just how quickly those young people took to moving this into a virtual space. Our facilitators, so our team members at Head Partnership who were kind of facilitating each of these activities, they saw the same levels of interaction and enthusiasm as they would had they been taking place in school. So that was really encouraging and really reassuring. Work experience, which we will talk a little bit about at the end. Work experience is a very popular activity still, and still really important both to employers, schools and their students, but it is a much more complex activity to develop because it's longer, it involves multiple interventions and touch points. So it's not, I was about to say, it's not quite finished yet. We are actually just completing the pilot really for our work experience, but students and employers have overwhelmingly agreed that its value hasn't decreased, and they're really enthusiastic about how it can, you know, continue to be delivered. But Megan will tell you a bit more about our work experience at the end. So preparation, one thing that kind of came a little bit later in the pilot was that the process really made us consider wraparound materials and resources to support that online intervention that possibly we wouldn't have needed previously in our face-to-face activities. So one really good example is that for our careers panels, we found that it wasn't enough to just let the teacher log on with the students and then sort of let the students ask their questions. I mean, even in a face-to-face, you know, in-school careers panel, we would never just, you know, launch the students into it You know, there's a bit of peer pressure there. You don't want to be the first to ask the question. You know, we normally help by providing students some kind of sample questions, and then once they get into it, they're soon kind of, you know, go in with their own questions. But we did find that online they needed just a little bit more preparation in the warm-up to that, I suppose, because it was just that little bit harder to form that kind of relationship online and in a virtual space than if you're in the room with somebody. So the careers panels, the students actually preferred to read about or even research for themselves, maybe have like half an hour in class time or form time to research for themselves online about the employers that are attending the careers panel. And then they felt that they had enough background information to create their own kind of thoughts and questions ready for the panel. So on reflection, that seems like quite an obvious thing, but it's not something that we've typically seen in face-to-face careers panels, and was definitely heightened. You know, definitely heightened when we got the feedback from the students. When we could provide the students with the information in advance, when we did provide that kind of warm-up to the virtual event, we literally could not stop them asking questions. They really wanted to maximize that Q&A time, which is just fantastic, just brilliant engagement from the students. Do we have any? I'm just making sure I pause in case anybody had popped any questions in.
No questions.
No, excellent. Okay, so interview practice even before the pandemic, before we were talking about moving everything online, you know, it's always been one of our most sought after and, you know, highly prized activities that students really get so much from. And that hasn't changed. That hasn't changed by moving it online. The incidental kind of shift is that the virtual version now more accurately reflects what young people will need to do to get a job. So even before the pandemic, a lot of large employers were interviewing online for grad schemes and apprenticeships. But by April this year, that had actually shifted to 86% of employers in the UK interviewing online for the obvious reasons, and actually included, you know, giants such as Amazon and Google. So given its convenience and cost-saving qualities, we don't expect that to change very much, even as people have started returning to the office and returning to kind of co-working spaces. And so students actually really valued being able to get that experience of the online recruitment process. And when we got feedback from the volunteers who took part, they said that they felt that our online interview practice very accurately simulated what young people would now need to do in the real world. So that was kind of an incidental shift, really.
Yeah, we just had a quick comment from Sarah about how fantastic it is if it's actually recorded and fed back for, you know, purpose and development. So thanks for that.
That's true. That's true. I think as well, like looking to potentially extend that into our interview practice. That's not something we are doing at the moment, but I think once we've kind of checked out the safeguarding and data protection around that, you know, that is something that other employers have said as well, is that it is so valuable and it is so useful to the students to do that in a constructive way for them. Okay, so the last one, I suppose the thing we were most worried about as an organisation in moving all our programmes online was whether we could still get all the benefits of our face-to-face activities, you know, in a virtual space. And one of the keys to our programme is introducing young people to a wide range of roles and people from, you know, an absolute cross-section of society, from all different cultures and backgrounds, you know, different pathways, different levels of education. And that, you know, we did worry, we did kind of say, oh gosh, you know, we hope that we can replicate that online and move that online. You know, the independent evaluation that we did of our work, you know, this was one of the key success factors that teachers that take part in our programme most valued about it. So, you know, we were sort of a little bit when we went to the students for feedback, we were kind of like, oh, we hope that we can still achieve this, because, you know, we say you can't be what you can't see, and we want to make sure that they still got contact with that wide range of people, even though those volunteers can't physically be in school. Our pilot students, again, overwhelmingly said yes, and in fact, it was one of the things they most valued during the pilot. So that proved that even if we had to work with less students on average per event, you know, we can't, gone are the days of, you know, 400 student careers events. You know, even if we have to work with smaller groups of students online, we can still make sure that they get the same exposure to a diverse range of people in employment, you know, with all the varied advice, experience and wisdom that they have to share. That was really encouraging.
Great, thanks, Lola. That was fantastic. I think we were really keen to share the learning, and we'll share this afterwards, sort of the slides, because no matter if you're one of our partners and you directly work with us, whether you're a school, whether you have a link with a local school, we're keen that people learn from the process that we went through and develop from that. As you know, all of the activities are taking place online, which makes it really easy for volunteers to take part from working from home. A lot of our partners have actually fed back about employee engagement, employee isolation, how hard it is to keep that team dynamic, that sense of sort of working together happening. So actually see volunteering together as an opportunity to help with that. The travel to volunteer is no longer a burden. It can take quite a little bit of time to get to some of our schools, especially in rush hour. So it's a less time commitment to actually volunteer. It can actually open up to other volunteers who maybe found face-to-face a barrier. I'm sure we have a lot of our actual volunteers on the phone, and that first time you stand in front of a 14-year-old and try to explain what your job is a bit daunting. So actually volunteering virtually has opened up to some other types of volunteers who might have found it a bit overwhelming. And actually what I found from speaking to a lot of our partners, one of the key sort of personal reasons that our volunteers get involved is to meet like-minded people from other organisations, people who want to make a purpose to society but might be in a completely different job in a different sector. So there is still that opportunity to network, and we're building that into the actual session. There might be 10 minutes at the start or 10 minutes at the end for all of the volunteers to get together and to talk through their experiences. And as Lola just briefly mentioned on, but really important, everything's organised by us if you get involved. So the safeguarding, the IT managing, the technology, all of that is hopefully seamlessly organised. Great. In terms of events that are good to go, so events that we take part in our pilot activities, we have these now scheduled throughout the course of the academic year. So virtual careers panels coming on, talking about your job, what you do, your experiences alongside volunteers from other organisations. Virtual speed networking, that is fun. Takes a little bit of a coffee afterwards because you've spoken so much to the young people, but a real experience for our young people to, you know, meet different people from different organisations, and an opportunity for them to, you know, in an hour and a half, meet so many people. Thank you also to Karen. She's just noted in the chat how your volunteers have commented on how much they've enjoyed their activities. Thank you, Karen from DLA. We've got employ me boot camps, so activities where young people might not be ready for that first, you know, mock interview virtually. They need to develop some other types of employability skills. So everything from introducing yourself professionally, confidence in the workplace, you know, social media presence, how that's reflected professionally, lots of different workshops that we've developed that bring the world of work to life in a really creative way. And then, as Lola said, virtual mock interview practice, we've got that happening, and because of the way it's now being delivered, it's on a smaller scale, so we do require a significant amount of volunteers. So if you'd like to get involved, please let us know, and we'd like to involve you in that. Great. Our last opportunity, if Lola just switches along, we have been developing virtual work experience, currently called Experience Act. This is launching this month, and we have a lot of our partners who want to deliver this with us. This is based on consultation with our schools, our teachers, and our students. A lot of our community telling us that there is going to be a year and a half where young people don't get to take part in work experience, and fundamentally that is going to be a significant issue. We have been developing our own platform and ways of working to deliver this virtually, and we're really excited to be launching it this year. In this forum, I wanted to mention, I think there's something quite special about the community in Leeds, and also within the technology community, where everyone would like to collaborate together. We see digital skills as a big opportunity for our young people locally, and we'd like to develop a digital skills work experience model where businesses, whether you have digital skills in-house or whether you're an actual tech organization, you get involved in a collaborative project that takes young people through experience within digital, but as different modules within that. We're really keen to speak to technology businesses or people in tech roles who might want to sort of get involved with that. We're at a really early stage of what it looks like in terms of how it will run, you know, how many different businesses will be involved, how many young people, but we really do want to co-create with everyone. So please, if you'd like to find out a little bit more about that, please do get in contact with Lola or I at the end after the session. Great. Just before we move on, just any questions, any observations from people? I know we've had quite a few comments in the chat. It's great to see a lot of our lead partners sort of supporting us. And
I think I did have an anonymous question that was posted on Slido, which I've just picked up. So sorry, thank you for posting it. Sorry that you've been waiting. So we know a few GCSE students whose exams were cancelled and they're still struggling to get any post-16 education. Any suggestions for them?
So young people who unfortunately weren't able to take their GCSEs and they haven't gone on to their post-16 destinations, although a head partnership aren't an educational establishment, we can definitely direct them in the right direction with our partners at the council. I know we have them on the call. We also have a lot of sort of further education partners on the call. So we pick that up separately. We're not the people to give the exact advice, but we can definitely put you in contact with the right people. Yeah.
Yep, that's the only question I've got in Slido. If anyone had any more questions, we'd be absolutely happy to answer them. I think there's a comment here from Caroline as well, saying that the volunteers at Arup as well really enjoyed the activities, and you know the support and feedback from people who've taken part in the virtual activities so far has been so encouraging and so positive, and they've made brilliant suggestions. Like I say, those first few interview practices we did have some technology glitches and we did have some things that went wrong, and they were just so patient and have really allowed us to learn and grow this program of virtual activities for young people, so that now they're back in school, we've got a really confident start with them.
Great, thanks Lola. So just to wrap the session up, really, we were really keen to make sure that we shared all of our learning that we've gone through, to make people aware that if you want to volunteer, there is still a really easy way to do that. At a head partnership, we're truly passionate about making sure that no matter where you come from, whatever type of young person you are, you have an opportunity to reach your potential, and use our business network to make sure that happens. So I suppose lastly, a call to action. If you're an individual within an organization and you're just interested in this agenda and you want to volunteer, our activities are as much about passionate volunteers as they are about showcasing exciting businesses, so get in contact. If you work at an organization and you have responsibility for CSR, people engagement, purposeful business, please have a conversation internally and get in contact with us. We have a lot of young people who are in need and would love to use your passion and direct it towards them. And thirdly, if you are from a tech background or work for a tech organization and you're interested in helping shape what a head partnership tech offer is,
and more importantly, our technology work experience. Please do reach out because we'd love to collaborate, sort of co-creation within our DNA, and we'd love to involve you in our programme moving forward.
Brilliant. I think we do just have one question from Tracy, a really good one. Just wondering whether there are any additional safeguarding issues and checks as a result of online activities. I can field to that one if you like. So I'm one of our safeguarding leads at Ahead Partnership, and I'm also our data officer. So yes, the answer is yes, there were, but we have done a lot of work to make sure that that's all kind of absorbed by Ahead Partnership, and less so by the organisations and volunteers taking part. It did mean that we had to remodel some of our briefing for our virtual activities. So things such as, you know, being conscious of what's in background if you're doing interview practice online, because, you know, part of that, the interview practice magic, as it were, part of what works is that they're able to see the interviewer's face on video. So we want, you know, switching cameras off isn't kind of, you know, the workaround we're looking for an activity like that. But all of that, we checked it all out with our schools, and I think it was the Gorse Trust, wasn't it, actually, who really helped us kind of shape, you know, how our safeguarding needed to change, because we were moving online and not physically being in the room with students. In some respects, it kind of makes the safeguarding, you know, aspect a little bit easier if you're not in the room with them. But it did bring a whole new world of things that we had to consider as well. But those have all been absorbed by Ahead Partnership, and are provided to our volunteers in the briefing, which is usually a few days now before the activity itself. So thank you, Tracy. That was a great question. It was one we were concerned about as well. I kind of purposely left it out of the pilot learnings, but if anybody, you know, would want to know more about that, then just let us know.
Great, thank you, Lola. Fantastic. Well, thank you for joining us today. We have finished on time, which is a positive. You know, really thankful you've made a bit of time for us. If you'd like to find out more, please do drop us a line, but we'll share all of the slides and all of the research later this afternoon. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lovely to see you all.